Well, this is a great time to join. If this is your first video, you're going to learn no, not really. You should go back and start from the beginning. This will make way more sense if you do that because I use words and I use people that maybe you're not familiar with if you've not been studying the Bible for a while. So we're in Acts chapter 25. And if you want this delivered to your inbox every morning, you can go to brandoncunningham.com and sign up there. It's free. You can give if you want, but you don't have to. But you can go there to get that in your inbox every morning. And we're in Acts chapter 25, as I just said, because I like to repeat myself. I'm a father of five. I'm pretty good at that. So let's jump right in. 3 days after Festus had entered the province, he went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem. There, the head Kohanim and the Judean leaders informed him of the case against Saul, and they asked him to do them the favor of having the man sent to Jerusalem. They wanted to jump him on the way, obviously, but Festus replied that Saul was being kept under guard in Caesarea and that he was about to go there shortly himself. So he said, "Let competent men among you come down with me and press charges against the man if he has done something wrong." After staying with them at most 8 or 10 days, Festus went down to Caesarea, and on the following day he took his seat in the court and ordered Saul to be brought in. When he arrived, the Judeans who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many serious charges against him, which they could not prove. In reply, Saul said, "I have committed no offense, not against the Torah to which the Jews hold, not against the temple, and not against the emperor." But Festus, wanting to do the Judeans a favor, political favors were done way back then too, asked Saul, "Would you be willing to go up to Jerusalem and be tried before me there on these charges?" Saul replied, "I am standing right now in the court of the emperor, and this is where I should be tried. I have done no wrong to the Judeans. As you very well know, if I am a wrongdoer and if I have done something for which I deserve to die, then I am ready to die. But if there is nothing to these charges which they are bringing against me, no one can give me to them just to grant a favor. I appeal to the emperor." Then Festus, after talking with his advisors, answered, "You have appealed to the emperor, you will go to the emperor." After some days, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived in Caesarea to pay their respects to Festus. Since they were staying on there for some time, Festus had the opportunity to acquaint the king with Saul's situation. "There's a man here," he said, "who was left behind in custody by Felix. When I was in Jerusalem, the head Kohanim, the head priest, and the elders of the Judeans informed me about him and asked me to pronounce judgment against him. My answer to them was not that it is not the custom with Romans to give up an accused man just to grant a favor, before he has met his accusers face to face and had the opportunity to defend himself against the charge. So when they arrived here with me, I did not delay, but I took my seat in court the next day and ordered the man brought in. When the accusers stood up, instead of charging him with some serious crime as I expected, they disputed with him about certain points of their own religion, and particularly about somebody called Yeshua who had died but Saul claimed was alive. Being at a loss as to how to investigate such questions, I asked him if he would be willing to go to Jerusalem and be tried on these matters there. But since Saul appealed to be kept in custody and to have his case decided by his imperial majesty, I ordered him held until I could send him to the emperor. Agrippa said to Festus, "I myself have been wanting to hear this man." "Tomorrow," he replied, "you will hear him." So the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with much pageantry. They entered the audience room accompanied by military commanders and the prominent men of the city. Then at the command of Festus, Saul was brought in. Festus said, "King Agrippa and all of you here with us, do you see this man? The whole Judean community has complained to me about him both in Jerusalem and here, crying that he shouldn't be allowed to remain alive. But I discovered that he has done nothing and deserves a death sentence. Now, when he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to send him. However, I have nothing specific to write to his majesty about him. This is why I brought him here before all of you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we have examined him, I might have something to write. It seems irrational to send me a prisoner without also indicating what the charges against him are. So, that was a problem. You couldn't just send him to the emperor without a reason. You're wasting the emperor's time. So he didn't want to do that either. But when Governor Festus went to Jerusalem to meet with the Jewish leadership, mostly with the high priest and his family, some senior priest, wealthy aristocrats from the Chaldean party, the ones that ran the temple. And then after 2 years, the Sanhedrin still wanted Saul killed. He'd been sitting in Caesarea for 2 years. So how effective was he in jail that they still hated him and wanted him killed? We got to work where God puts us. Don't worry about not being at the top place. Be wherever you're at. Start preaching there. Start sharing the gospel wherever you're at. So Jerusalem was basically in anarchy. The Zealots and the Sicarii were murdering Jews who didn't meet their test of Jewishness, proper Jewish loyalty. Judas was a member of the Sicarii, more than likely. He had no problem killing people for not following the way he felt like they should be. We kind of do that in church now, where you're not a proper Christian unless you do it this way, so let's get rid of you. So since the Jewish accusers' charge of conspiring to foment trouble, this allowed Saul to appeal to the emperor. And the emperor at this time was the very unstable Nero. You never knew what he was going to do. Agrippa he was never married. It was his sister Bernice that played the role of queen. So his visit was to basically just show approval of Festus' commission. It was a ceremonial thing that we do every once in a while, and our governments around the world do this. But it would also allow Saul to speak to a king and queen, just like he was told he would be able to. So Agrippa and Bernice saw themselves as Jews because Agrippa was faithful to the Jewish rituals and biblical feast. It's basically what politicians do now. The reason for the long genealogy of just Yeshua in the Gospels, it was to prove that he was a Jew in every way. That was a really big deal. There were people that knew Agrippa wasn't really a Jew, but they accepted it because of the way he benefited the Jews and some of the things that he did or didn't do, to hurt them. But really, to be considered a literal Jew, you needed that genealogy. And so that's why we see a lot of that in the Gospels. That was the only way to really prove that Yeshua was who he said he was. So in Judea, the Romans were seen as unclean occupiers of Jewish land. So, they didn't really respect them in any way. They just tolerated them because they were occupying the land at the time. So that's why they wanted Paul to be sent over. That way they would be able to take him out on the road and they wouldn't even have to go through a trial because they couldn't prove anything they were saying anyway. But imagine after 2 years, the hate was still there. Why? It wasn't about Yeshua. It was about him not being a good Jew. He wasn't following in line and just following halakha, the doctrine of the time. So they wanted to take him out. That seemed normal to them. It seemed right to them. It seems right to a lot of Christians to hate on people that they don't agree with too. So that nothing's changed in thousands of years. God bless. Join us next time, chapter 26. Love God, love people, and change the world.